Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the nerd on the street, and today we are going to be installing MyBB. Alright everybody, before I jump into the actual video today, I want to take a moment to let you guys know why I'm making this video. So this is going to be a little bit of a story, and I know somebody down in the comments is going to say real video starts at, and then they'll post the timestamp for when the actual installation starts. So if you don't care about the background, go down, find the comment, and you can skip all of this. But I'm not making this video today because I think it would get a lot of views. On the contrary, MyBB is a fairly old program. Forums aren't used a whole lot on the internet anymore, classic forums that is. And there are other more popular web applications and content management systems that I could show you today that more people are probably searching for. So why am I making a video about MyBB today in 2020? They haven't made a new release or anything that I'm aware of. Why am I making this video? Well, I think that it's extremely important that people on the internet keep control of their own content as much as possible. I've mentioned in recent videos how I've been putting more work into my own website because my videos go on YouTube and Dailymotion, but I also always make sure that any content I post, I've also got on my own website so that nobody else can really take it down. Obviously, I'm paying a cloud host to host the machine for that website, but I can always migrate to a different cloud host and the infrastructure and all the software stuff would stay the same. So there was a video game that started production way back in January of 2007. It's a long time ago now. And this video game was made online, and it was made by volunteers. It was people who were doing this for their hobby. They had a concept that they were all attracted to. There were people who came in and worked on this story for a video game, and there were people who did artwork and music and programming, and a lot of people collaborating on this game that ended up coming out really well in 2012, 5 years later. Now, the video game, since it was made by volunteers on the internet from all over the world, they needed a place to collaborate on it. And in order to collaborate, they used online forums. Now, they also used IRC a whole lot, but in terms of the stuff that stayed, the long-term planning, they used forums. The first forums that they used were hosted on a website called InvisionFree, and you may not have ever heard of it, but this was back in a time when online forums were very popular, and just like, throughout the 2010s, people were making Minecraft servers and making money off of, having other people come in and rent their Minecraft servers. 2000s, people were making forums, and they were making forum hosting websites, and they were making money off of people coming in and using their forum hosting solutions. And so InvisionFree was a forum hosting solution. It was free to use. They didn't have to pay to make a board on InvisionFree. It was sort of be like Reddit today. If you go and make a subreddit, you're making a group on an established platform. So another platform is taking care of the user account hosting and everything, and they're hosting your actual content, but then you've got your own kind of community within that platform. So this was their forum in InvisionFree, and this was where development started on this video game, and there was concept art and very early talk about what this game was going to be and the story and everything. Now, eventually, they actually migrated away from their InvisionFree forum, and they migrated to their own self-hosted forum. And their self-hosted forum was actually using PHPBB, which I've never used myself. The default theme for PHPBB is a little bit more dated, in my opinion, but it's also a very established forum software, just like MyBB is. Now, the reason why they migrated from InvisionFree to PHPBB on their own servers was actually because of the content policies of InvisionFree. They didn't allow everything that they wanted to be in this game. And so they couldn't talk about all the aspects of their game in the development forums, which was an issue, so they migrated away. And that makes sense. Just like people today, one of the reasons you might migrate off of YouTube into another website is if YouTube's content guidelines are not something that you're able to adhere to with your content. So they migrated away. A few years later, their game came out, and now it's been 8 years since this game was released, and the developers have kind of dispersed. This was just a not-for-profit group, so nobody was really paying attention to the infrastructure anymore. You don't need development forums anymore if the game has finished being developed. Now, in 2018, Zetaboards and InvisionFree were bought out by a company called Tapatalk. And you may have heard of Tapatalk. They're used on some very popular forums, such as the XDA developer forums. If you've ever rooted an Android phone and installed a custom ROM, you've probably used the XDA forums. And in a world today where forums aren't as popular, all the big forum companies have kind of been consolidating and getting bought out by one another. So Tapatalk purchased InVisionFree in 2018, and so the InVisionFree forums actually went down in 2018. And then January 2019, I noticed that, and being a fan of this video game, I wanted that history of the game's development to remain available. So I sent an email to Tapatalk support requesting that they migrate the forum from InVisionFree to Tapatalk, which is what was required. They basically said, we're not going to be hosting InVisionFree anymore. We're shutting that down, but they were offering an option to migrate. So I said, okay, let's request a migration. And they did it. Now fast forward another year to January 2020. Me and a few other people were actually working on a documentary about the development of this video game, since I thought it was a neat story. And I went to find those original developer forums, since that was where it all began. And when I went to the Tapatalk forum page, I got a message that those forums were not found. I contacted Tapatalk support about this and found out that Tapatalk's policy is that if a forum is inactive for 3 months, if it doesn't have a new post at least once every 3 months, they will delete the forum. They just get rid of it. And I don't know if they sent a notification to any of the former InVisionFree administrators or not. I would not be surprised if they did. And whoever received the notification just either didn't see it in time or just didn't care. But as somebody who wanted that content to remain available and who even went out of my way to help it remain available for slightly longer, that really pissed me off. That they just, if I had realized that those terms were in place, I could have actually gone and I would have been happy to just make a post every 3 months, just make a thread and bump it every 3 months to keep the forum online. I would have done that, honestly, if I had realized that was in Tapatalk's terms of service. The reason I didn't realize that was because that was not in InVisionFree's terms of service. And I'm sure that's part of why the people who were originally using it were okay with using InVisionFree, because, their terms of service, they don't have anything crazy in there. These forums had been inactive for nearly a decade, and until 2018, they were perfectly fine. But the company who was hosting them got bought out, and the new company applied their terms of service now to the forums, and then deleted the forums 3 months later after no posts. And at this point, they claim they don't have backups, and they're no longer able to restore those forums. So I think that story of this data being lost, and a lot of the development of that game is still available, the history, because a lot of it was on their self-hosted PHPBB forums. But the initial stuff, the very first conceptual stuff that was happening, that's all just gone because of this company. So this tells us a couple things. Number one, even if you agree with the company's terms of service right now, not only can the terms of service always change, but that company could get bought out by a different company with different terms of service. So just because you agree with the terms of service doesn't mean that that's going to hold forever. So you really can't trust any company that you don't own. And number two, it's a very clear example that the longevity of a self-hosted forum, people who advocate for using a platform instead of your own self-hosted thing would say, oh, well, if you're hosting it yourself, you're one person. If you stop paying the bills, or if you're hosting it at home, if your house burns down, then it's all gone. And it's much safer to let a big company with a huge data center and a backup team and all this handle the data. That might work in theory, but in practice, I've found so many times, this isn't the only instance of this, so many times it seems that, you've got this huge company with all these resources, and then you've got an individual or a small group. And the small group is almost always able to keep their content online longer than somebody trusting a big company. And it's not because of intentional decisions. It's because of these roundabout ways that the big companies end up just trashing things, because they don't actually care about the content. They care about the business, the money it's bringing in, whereas the individual or the small group cares about the content. So even though the original reason why these developers migrated from InVisionFree to their own PHPBB forums was the content policy, which is still something we talk about today, a decade later, for the platforms that we use, a side effect of them doing that was a completely separate thing, the inactivity not being an issue on their own forums where it was an issue on the platform. So this video is basically just a screw you to Tapatalk. Anybody can host their own forums. It's extremely easy. It's very cheap. If you want to do it with a cloud service provider, you can get a DigitalOcean or a Linode server for $5 a month. That's $60 a year. If you can't afford that, you can home host a MyBB instance. I did it for years. I only got DDoSed once. So I would highly encourage anybody, no matter what your forums are for, maybe you're not developing a video game, but whatever you're doing, if you're making a community online, if you're thinking about making a subreddit or a Tapatalk forum or anything else on somebody else's platform, I would highly encourage you to consider making your own MyBB instance and hosting your own forums instead. Because that way, yes, if you stop paying the bills, then your server will go down. But at least that's your decision. It's something you're doing, and it's not a faceless corporation doing that for you. So that's the very long introduction out of the way. You're watching a Nerd on the Street video. This was a surprise to no one. And without further ado, I'm going to cut to the desktop and we're going to install MyBB. All right, guys, so here we are on the desktop. As usual, the first thing we're going to do is create a DigitalOcean droplet. You can use any server provider that you want, but you can go to digitalocean.knots.co or linode.knots.co for a discount if you'd like to use one of those two providers. We're going to use a Debian 10 server today. You can use Ubuntu. The instructions should be almost identical. We're going to use the cheapest option available, $5 a month, to demonstrate how affordable it is to host your own forums. We'll stick with the New York data center for today, and I am going to add my SSH key so that I can log into this machine without having to set a password. For the host name, I'm going to make this Knots Forums Example, and we will create this droplet. Once we've got an IP address, we are going to copy that IP address, and we do want to set up our domain name to point to the IP address because we're going to want to use SSL. This is a forum. We might have semi-sensitive information in it, and we definitely want to encrypt those passwords while they're in transit. So we are going to add an A record. We're going to make this forumexample.nerdonthestreet.com, and I will paste in my IP address there. I'll set the TTL to 5 minutes since I'm planning on deleting it later, and I don't want that to stick around after I delete it. We do need to wait a couple minutes for that change to propagate in DNS, and while we're waiting, I'll just show you the MyBB homepage. This is mybb.com, and it sort of demonstrates what MyBB can do. They've got some different screenshots of different websites that have been made using MyBB. It is very themable, it's very customizable. I would highly encourage you to check out all the features here, and this is one of the reasons why I do like MyBB. PHPBB is really great, it's also been around for a long time, but MyBB, like I said, I just find it easier to make look modern, because even though I like classic things like forums, I still like them to look nice. So we are going to need to go to the download page, and this is where we're going to get our download link once we're ready for that. But for right now, I'm going to open up a terminal, and I am going to SSH into my new server. So the IP address for that server, I'm going to copy again, and I will SSH into root at that IP address. I will accept the fingerprint and enter my SSH passphrase. And now we are in our new server. So there are a number of packages we're going to need to install. The first thing I'll do is a quick apt update and apt full upgrade just to make sure that our operating system is up to date to start with. And that is finished. So I will link in the description below to the page on the Nerd on the Street website where I'll have the commands that I'm using for this video. We are going to need to install Apache, MariaDB, our MySQL equivalent server, PHP, the PHP plugin for Apache, the PHP plugin for MySQL, PHP XML is required for MyBB, certbot for HTTPS, Python certbot Apache for HTTPS with Apache, and then unzip, which we're going to use to unpack the MyBB files in a moment. So we'll run that, and we will let it install all of those packages and their dependencies. And that is all done. So now we are going to make a directory where we're going to put our MyBB files later. You can use the default virtual host if you want, but I'm going to use a specific virtual host just for MyBB. It's a little bit better security with the TLS setup and everything. So we're going to make a directory at var www forums, and that's where our MyBB installation is going to live. We will set the permission on that directory later. For right now, I am going to also make a configuration file for this virtual host. So we will copy the sites available /default configuration file, that's 000-default.conf. We will copy it to etc apache 2 sites available forums.conf. And I like to keep my Apache configuration files named the same things as the directories just to make things easier to follow on a server with lots of different virtual hosts configured. We are going to nano into this new file that we just created, and we are going to set our server name, which is going to be, what did I make it again? I made it forum-example.nerdonthestreet.com. So we will type that in here as well, forum-example.nerdonthestreet.com. And whenever somebody connects with that server name, we want to send them to var www forums. The server admin is me, that is Jacob at nerdonthestreet.com. And we will save this configuration file. We will enable the virtual site forums, then we will systemctl reload Apache 2 to apply that. So now if we go to forum-example.nerdonthestreet.com, we're getting an SSL error right now, so this means that the domain name has not actually gone through yet. If I open up another terminal and I do a dig on forum-example.nerdonthestreet.com, we will see that currently we are returning an IP address for my main web server and not our example web server. So at this point, we need to wait for DNS to propagate, so I'm just going to sit here and wait for that, and I'll let you guys know when we're ready to move on. Okay, and as you can see, we are now returning our example server's IP address for this domain name, so that DNS change has finished propagating. So now that the DNS change is propagated, we can run Let's Encrypt. I'm going to run certbot -- Apache, and we're going to enter our email address, agree to the terms of service. We will activate HTTPS for forum-example.nerdonthestreet.com, and our challenge was successful. We will set a redirect to HTTPS. Now if we go to forum-example.nerdonthestreet.com, we've got a secure HTTPS connection, and we can see our empty directory that we created earlier. The last thing we need to do before we actually install MyBB is set up our MariaDB database. We're going to complete the MariaDB installation by running mysql_secure_installation. There's currently no password for root, which is not good practice, so we'll set a password. And we'll accept the rest of the default options in this secure script. Now that that's done, we'll enter into our MariaDB server by running MariaDB. We are going to create a database called MyBB. We are going to create a user, MyBB, on localhost, identified by, and here's where you put your database password, so we'll make that a nice secure password there. We're going to grant all privileges on the MyBB database and all of its tables to MyBB at localhost, and then we're going to quit. Now we need to download MyBB onto our server. I am currently working out of my home directory. I'm going to download the archive file here, then I'm going to move the files we actually want to go into the web servers directory once it's done downloading. So we'll go to the MyBB download page and we will copy this link here to download MyBB version 1.8.22. We're going to wget that on our server, and then we're going to run unzip on that MyBB zip file. Now, if we do an ls here, we can see that we do have our documentation for MyBB, which they include in the zip file. We've got the zip file itself, and then we've got an upload directory. If we take a look inside the upload directory, these are the files we actually want to go into our web server. So in order to move all of that, I am going to run mv./upload, and everything in that directory I want to move to var www forums. I'm going to remove directory on upload. So we know we got everything and there were no dot files in that upload folder because remove directory won't remove a folder if there are still any files in it. And now I do want to chown recursively so that www data user and the www data group own var www forums. This isn't actually part of the official MyBB installation guide, interestingly enough, but if you don't do this, you will run into some problems. Their guide actually isn't complete. All right, so now that that's done, we're going to go to forumexample.nerdonthestreet.com/install, and that should bring us to the MyBB installation wizard. Once you're at this point, things are really downhill from here. I'm going to opt out of sending anonymous statistics. This server is not really going to be used anyway. As you can see, MyBB is published under the GPL version 3, so it is free software. The requirements check says that everything is good. The web server is going to be able to write to everything because we set it as the owner of those files. The MyBB installation guide actually has you modify permissions on some of the files individually, but it actually leaves you with less secure permissions on those files. So I'd recommend starting with this setup, and then if you run into issues later, you can always adjust things. For our database configuration, we are using MySQL, and our database server is the local system. Our username is MyBB, the database password is our super secure password, and the database name is also MyBB. We'll leave the table prefix set to the default, and we will use the default table encoding. The wizard will create all of the database's tables, and we can go ahead and populate our tables with the default information. Next, we will insert the MyBB template, theme, and now we can actually configure our board. So forum name, I'm just gonna name mine in the spirit of my example here, early game dev forums. I'll make the website name Nerd on the Street. We can leave the cookie settings at their defaults. The ACP pin here, this is if you want a separate pin required to access the admin control panel in addition to your admin's actual username and password. Forum software is interestingly secure and interestingly focused on security because the types of communities that use forums are the same types of communities that would have people trying to hack into their forums, but we won't set a pin right now. We will go ahead and create our default admin account. I'll make the username Jacob and the password our super secure password. My email address is going to be jacob@nerdonthestreet.com, and we'll continue. Okay, and your copy of MyBB has been successfully installed and configured correctly. Now at this point, it's interesting, if MyBB doesn't have permissions to create a lock file in the install directory, if you didn't own everything under www data like we did in our tutorial, then MyBB will actually show you in red text right here a message that you'll need to remove the install directory before you start to use MyBB, because if you leave the install directory there, somebody else can rerun it in the future, which would overwrite all of your settings. However, since we ran that chown command, instead MyBB just creates a lock file in that directory, and whenever the lock file is present, the installer won't run, so you don't actually need to remove the install directory. So at this point, we can go to MyBB, and here are our brand new forums. As you can see, the forum name is what's actually used in our title of our browser and everything, early game dev forums. Our site name here is down, and it says Nerd on the Street, so if you've got a website separate from your forums, you can link to that website from your forums. And just to demonstrate here, we can go into the default My Forum, we can post a new thread, we can make the subject hi there, and what do we want as our message? Let's see. Don't you hate it when a commercial company deletes a community project because it wasn't profitable? I sure do. That's why I made these forums using the free and open source MyBB software. All right, and here we've got all of our normal forum things. You can have signatures and sticky threads and all kinds of stuff. We'll just post our thread, and now we see it. Here's our post, and if I was going to keep this system up, which I'm not, we already have forums for Nerd on the Street at nerdonthestreet.com, but if I was gonna keep this system up, then other people could come and register accounts here and reply to me. Now, if you've never used MyBB before, just a quick little summary of how it works. You've got your user view here with all of your forums, and there's a user control panel that everybody with an account will be able to access to go and customize their profile and everything. There's a mod control panel, which is for your moderators to go into and keep track of things like reported threads or reported messages that people want moderators to remove. And then there's an admin control panel, which is for your web server administrator to use or your MyBB administrator. And if we log into this again, once again, it asks for our username and password again because forum software is all about security. We've got a nice little overview of our system. We can go to the configuration here. One of the settings you will probably want to change if you're making a public forum is the mail settings. By default, we're going to use PHP mail. This is just going to be an email coming from your web server's IP address. And unless you've got your web server already set up to send mail, that is probably going to get marked as spam by most email providers. So you'll probably want to change this to SMTP mail. And whether you're using an actual service like Elastic Email or SparkPost, or even if you're just using something like Gmail or Fastmail and you're putting in SMTP credentials for your own personal email, even that is going to have a better chance of actually getting delivered than PHP mail. So you'll probably want to do that. And if we come under templates and style here, not only can you apply different themes to MyBB, but you can also change templates and make new templates. MyBB is incredibly flexible. I actually used this software for nerdonthestreet.com for a while. If you go to archive.nerdonthestreet.com, I've got a list of the old versions of the website. In this version here, boilerplate, this was the version based on MyBB. I've got 2 videos where I basically show how the Nerd on the Street website was set up using MyBB. So if you want to see some of the cool stuff you can do once you've got this installed, go and check that out. But for now, we have successfully installed MyBB and we have our own self-hosted forums. Remember guys, host your own content, because if you're anything like me, there is no company who is going to care about keeping your content online more than you do. If you have any problems while going through the installation process, you can go to nerdonthestreet.com where my forums are and ask a question there. But for now, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the Nerd on the Street, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.